Welcome back, everybody. I got a new video. It's going to be called somewhere along the lines of training, uh, techniques, and influences for pit bulls, or some of this will apply to any dog. Nothing meant for legal purposes. This is about history and knowledge and opinion. I'm going to get graphic when I talk about the past. Sometimes it's not anything current, nor is it meant to be, and I'm not teaching anybody to do anything illegal, but some of these observations and teachings can be applied. If you don't have to change the method, but what you can change from what was done in the past and apply it to today's times. So most people know that dogs are very intelligent. Most of them are. They can be taught a lot of things or be influenced by a lot of things. They can be trained to do a lot of things. If you take into account that, for example, circus dogs jumping through hoops of fire or riding a bike on a tightrope. We've all seen pictures and little videos of dogs driving cars and mouths jumping, 10, 15 feet, walking on, a thin surface, keeping their balance. Dogs can swim, hunt, catch dogs. In the past, we used them for what we used them for. And in that respect, you could teach a lot to a dog, which is what I consider part of their schooling. Schooling in the day wasn't just putting them together and watching them fight. You're actually trying to teach them something or influence them a certain way so they learn on their own how to do things. Some of the ways you could do that was with voice and hand commands. I heard a lot of people back in the day give their opinion on how to handle a dog, and they would always tell me, stay in front of the dog, stay where your dog can see you, stay, let them know you're there and all that stuff, that's true under certain circumstances or in certain situations. But you didn't have to be in front of your dog where he could see you. Your dog can feel you there, your dog can hear you, your dog can smell you, he knows where you're at. So in some cases, it's not to the best advantage to be right in front of your dog, especially when you're handling. Now, I could handle a dog any direction they're facing, or whatever side or in front or back of the dog that I'm at. But I always looked at it, what's the best position for me to have, and which way should I be moving? For example, I like to move counterclockwise to the dog, because if you do that, at some point you're going to be there in front of your dog if they're moving around. Rather than just following around trying to catch up, you meet the dog at some point. So, and you had to have done that a lot to figure out how to handle, the proper way to handle, when to move, when to make your handles, when not to, when to back off, when to send them in, when to talk to them, when not to talk to them, when to encourage them, when to keep your mouth shut. So whatever you're teaching your dog, you can use voice commands, and it can be followed by a hand command, which I had my kids do this, for example, to keep the dogs, especially if it was a dog they didn't know, one they didn't raise, and even during the process of them being puppies and coming into adulthood, they had to behave a certain way around the kids. So, and a lot of this is the Pavlov dog theory, I call it mental conditioning, where you're making the dog do something without, where it's not unconscious, but it just becomes, you do it repetitively so the dog can react. We can react to voice commands, they can react to hand signals, they can react to sounds, they can react to your body movement. So to keep the dogs from jumping on my children, I had them stand there, and the dog acted like he was going to jump. They'd have like a little stick, and it wasn't to hit the dog. I didn't have him hit the dog. But the dog understood that that stick meant something. So the dog wants to jump on the kid. He just raises the stick, waves it, and says no. Now it can get a little funky because the dog might go for the stick. So if you do it in a motion where you're just raising it and bringing it down and saying no, you do that repeatedly over and over, the dog gets the idea because you're not letting it jump on the kid, or the kid isn't letting the dog jump on him. From that, you remove the stick. Now you're just raising your hand. The kid's just raising his hand and saying no. It gets to the point where once they understand that, all the kid has to do is say no when the dog acts like he's going to jump on it. So it comes from all this beforehand stuff that you're doing to just one single word, no. And they understand no means don't do that. So that can relate to a lot of stuff. No, don't grab this. No, don't touch that. No, don't jump on me. No, don't get on the couch. No, stay off the bed. Because it's that motion. When you see the dog in motion trying to do something and he understands the word no, whatever the act is, that means for him not to do that. Also, in the past, when I was schooling my dogs, we would, if you want to teach them like which spot to go to, you do the same thing. You place them in that spot with a voice command. Whether it's get it, whether it's good boy, whether it's whatever it is you're doing, whatever command you want to use. And you have to use that same command for that same intent or that same action repeatedly over and over again. So let's say I wanted him to go to the throat or something like that. I place the dog on the other dog's throat. Encourage him. You get to that where you're placing them there and you're using a hand command. Wave a hand, point a finger, whatever it is. Do that repeatedly over and over. Because at some point you're not going to be able to place them, but they understand that command. So whatever it is you're doing, the action should be observable by you, and the dog should understand what it is you want him to do. And voice and hand signals or commands should go hand in hand to the point where you could use either one. Now you're either using the voice command, you're using the hand command, sometimes you're doing both, but you don't have to do both at some point. You're just using one or the other, either voice command or hand command. You do that repeatedly over and over. If you want to teach your puppy to sit, start when he's little. And the way I used to do it is I'd get the back towards their hips, kind of press a little bit, push them down and say sit, sit. You do that repeatedly over and over and over again until it gets to the point where you're just touching them in that area and saying sit. You don't have to squeeze it anymore and push them down. You just gently pushing them down. Gets to the point where you just say sit, or you touch them, that same motion over and over again, and they'll sit. Same thing if you want them to give your paw or come here. You can say come here and use a hand command, or up, or whatever it is. Come here, come here, come here, over and over and over again. And I don't mean in succession like that, but when the dog starts coming to you, you say come here, or you know how we used to go like that, come here. Then pretty soon you're just saying come here, or you're just going like that. Now some people, my way to reward the dog was always verbally and maybe petting or something like that, but never, I didn't like the food reward, because then they're expecting to get that treat every time you tell them to do something good. And you see people with pockets of kibble or food or whatever repeatedly over and over and over again. Just like when you're training, I see a lot of dogs, they're constantly looking at their owner to look for the command, the hand command or hand signal, followed with in conjunction with a voice, this and that. For some reason, I don't like that, because I want the dog to be paying attention to what he's doing in the traditional sense when they're rolling around there doing their thing, and pick up on some of my commands. So in that sense, I don't like seeing a dog constantly look at whether it's walking with you, you're walking side by side, how they're looking up and looking up and looking up and looking up. For some reason, I don't like that because they have their 100% almost of their attention on you rather than what's in front of them, what they're supposed to be doing. Dog should be looking out, and he should be trained to do whatever it is you taught him to do while he hears your voice command, or you do a hand signal in front of him rather than him looking at you and then do the action. I prefer them doing the action while they hear my voice, especially just the voice. Because again, in the traditional sense, they're doing their business. I don't want them looking at me. I don't want to have to be in position where they see me to hear my voice. I want them to do what I want them to do, what I've taught them to do, what they've learned to do. Whether they can see me or not, they can hear me. And if it's a slap on your knee or your thigh or whatever, they can hear that. They know what that means. So, and it's the same when you see dogs, in hold, and then they tell them out or whatever it is, and they have to repeatedly tell them, and they have to forcefully almost tell them out, out, out like that. Now, I understand they're in the heat of battle, they're chasing a suspect or something like that. But if you have to tell them more than once or twice or 3 times, or you have to forcefully remove them, that's not a well-trained dog to me. He should understand, hit it, grab it, whatever it is, and let go whenever you tell him to. And the only way I see that happening is if you do that over and over and over again. And they have to be put in those stress situations so that they can keep their mind on, attentive towards you while they're committing that action and still follow your commands. And it's the same thing. What we did with them was stressful. So if they can pay attention to you, if they can follow your commands, if they can hear you and maneuver around, if that's what you want them to do, one way to get them to move around is just kind of push them with your knee. Push a little bit, and they'll get that idea of to circle around while they have the dog down or in hold, whatever it is, or switch holds, whatever it is. So again, it's just that repetitive thing, what I call mental conditioning, to get them to do what you want them to do. But they have to be able to do it under stress as well, which means they have to keep their poise, they have to keep they have to regulate their breathing, not have that adrenaline dump, and stay focused. All this is going on. The only way to do that is to do it repeatedly over and over and over again. And some are able to handle it, some ain't. So there again, it's a choice of picking which ones are the best ones after going through these processes and finding out which ones are more in tune with you and which ones are able to learn or be influenced by what you're trying to teach them. So again, I didn't want the dog always looking at me. I want him to do the work while staying focused and not so much paying attention to me all the time. So in my day, if I want, it's just positive reinforcement and repeatedly over and over. If I wanted my dogs to learn how to scratch, or me using a voice command or an action to teach them to scratch or to have them scratch, I would just scratch them over and over and over again. Not to another dog, but me and my son would get out there, he'd hold a rag or a piece of Levi or hide, whatever it is, and you just scratch the dog repeatedly over and over at different distances, up close, mid-range, far away, 20, 30 yards far away, whatever. And the person, my son, who's being scratched to, you have a tendency to, when the dog gets there, to lift up or move it away. So that person has to have poise himself. And all he would do is stand to the side a little bit, hold the rag out. Dog scratches to it. Right as he gets there, you just kind of let it go, and the dog will grab the hide or the rag. Because you want him scratching straight, not coming up and jumping at something. You know, it's even better if you drop it too soon and they grab it off the ground than it is them jumping up for it, or the kid holding it up like that because he's scared to get bit. So that takes discipline as well. If when I wanted my dogs to get used to the confines of the box, I would play tug of war with them in the box. And I've talked about this before. Some of this stuff is repetitive, but it's just along the same lines. I just have them in there and maneuver around what it feels like when they're in the corner, up against the wall, move. Eventually they'll start moving around. Their tail will hit the side and they'll maneuver around. They're bunched up in the corner. They have to, and that I just kind of let the rag, they can't pull it anymore. There's no resistance of me. I'm just kind of loosely holding it so they pull themselves in the corner. And sometimes they knock themselves down backwards. Well, they got to get up. Or they're stuck in that corner. They got to move around because there's no resistance where they're pulling. Now it's kind of loose and they can maneuver out of there. So you want to encourage them repeatedly. And I don't mean talk to them constantly. I don't like that either. Talking to them constantly. Some will do that in a positive way. Some even do that in a negative way. What's wrong? What are you doing? How come he's doing that? I don't understand. Get out of there. All this stuff, is too much. If you're not using the same commands or the same things over and over, it's going to confuse the dog. He doesn't know what to listen to. That's why it has to be repetitive. So I encourage good behavior. I discourage bad behavior or something I didn't want, which a lot of times that just means removing them from the situation rather than telling them no, redirecting them. Get their mind on something else. If they want to hit this and I want them to hit that, I don't let them hit that. Physically move them to this and encourage them as they're doing it. So that's what I mean, discouraging bad behavior. But you never want to discourage good behavior. They accidentally get a hold of a chicken or mouse. I never told them no, tried to take it out of their mouth or whatever. That's what I wanted them to do as part of that finish instinct, hunting instinct, killer instinct. So if it was an accident, it's an accident. I just dealt with it. But I didn't chastise the dog or tell them no or tell them that's wrong or don't do that. I very rarely told the dog don't do that. It's more of removing them from the situation if I don't want them to do that, and just keeping my mouth shut at the same time. And you have to use the same commands over and over for whatever action it is. You use that same command for that particular action, which means you can have a lot of different commands for different actions. So the dog's going to have a repertoire of commands in his head and what it is you want him to do to that particular act. And it's just for that act. And you have another word for another action. So another thing that came up was, why are some dogs skittish? Now, sometimes that's breeding. A lot of times it's the epigenetics, how they're raised. It's more so that. But why are they that way? A lot of times it's because they're not handled. They're not put in different situations. They're not accustomed to outside influences. All kinds of things can bother them if they haven't been exposed to it, especially different surfaces and loud noises and unfamiliar people and riding around in a car and socializing in different areas around different people, or up in the mountains, in town, on pavement, on grass, at a park, in the dark. Some dog, I guess they could be afraid of the dark. So if you're with your dog, you handle your dog in the dark, then it's that motion where you have to have that connection where the dog can hear you, he can smell you. And a lot of times I just sit in the garage with the lights off. There might be a dim light, or it could be totally dark, or if you have windows in your garage, there would be some moonlight coming in, so very little lighting, or you have a dimmer switch, you dim the lights so that they get used to being in that environment. Because my intention was I don't want anything outside influence bothering my dog, because I use them for competition, and you're in all kinds of different situations in different places and different people, and they have to do what they were bred to do regardless of the outside influences or situation. But a lot of that is happens because they're not handled a lot. Now, most people pet their dog, they'll spend some time with their dog, but to actually handle them, pick them up, and this all starts when they're pups. So if you start these influences when they're pups, you won't have a problem when they're a grown dog. If you get a grown dog that's someone else raised and they haven't had this training or influences, it could be a problem. It might take longer for them to come out of that shell, and sometimes they never come out of certain shells. So that's why I implore people to mess with your pups. Do something with them. Teach them something. Teach them how to work. Teach them all these, expose them to all these outside influences. And but they need to be handled, touched, moved around, rolled around, picked up, put down. Come here, go there, do that, do this. Pull on the chain to bring them to you. Let the chain go. Walk around the kennel. Stick your fingers through there. Let them pet. Give them a command while they're in the kennel. If they know how to sit, you've taught them that command. You can do that when they're in the kennel. You're outside the kennel. They're inside the kennel. Sit. Or jump on your house. Do that. That's part of the training too. You don't have to be there with them and make them do it all the time. Once they've learned the action, you can just tell them. Go jump on your house. Come here. You jump on the house, they come here to you. Sit. Have them sit in the kennel. Stay. Wait there. Walk around the kennel. Jump around. Hoop and holler. Have the kids out there. Make the dog sit. Now, in my time, what I did is when I was schooling my dogs, I'd have the kids there, jumping around, pushing on them. Especially my son. Not really the kids, but my son. Making noise, kicking the box. Singing, have loud music on. Shooting guns. Because they had to stay focused on what they're doing regardless of the outside situation. Now, noise is one of the things that can bother them a lot. So there's a way to introduce that noise. I always talk about, I'd shoot guns around my dogs. It didn't bother them. But it wasn't, they were born that way. And I just didn't start shooting guns around. You have to start from a distance. So you're firing guns off in the distance, 100 yards away, maybe a 22. They hear the little tiny pop. Then you introduce larger caliber guns. Now using I had a H&K Model 91, it's 308. You start doing that. I had a Model 29 Smith & Wesson 44 Magnum, like Dirty Harry, You do that at a distance. Once they become accustomed to it, don't react to it, you get closer with the sound, Pop, 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 bang, shotguns, boom, boom, at a distance until you can get relatively close, and then you can shoot the guns, and loud noise doesn't bother them because they've been taught to ignore it or deal with it or accept it from when it's far away, and then you bring it closer. So that would be something you could do in public, socializing them. If they're not used to people or they're very young and you're getting them used to people, the people can be at a distance. The kids can be at a distance playing. All the noise, jumping around. Puppy sees it, hears it, you're holding them, and then you get the pup closer. You can do that a few times until they're accustomed to it, doesn't bother them. They don't shy away, they ain't timid, they ain't scared, until you get to the point where they're right there with the kids, running around, jumping around, and whatever. Now, usually it didn't come to that point because the kids always had the pups with them at some point in their room. They're holding them, playing with them, this and that. But when you have strangers around, sometimes they don't react the same with strangers as they do with the people they're familiar with, the children they're familiar with. So you can do that when their kids are playing with other kids at a distance until they become part of the group, and then they're sitting there playing with all the kids. But they should be handled a lot. And you should be able to, when I mean handle, I mean, pick them up, touch them, pet them, squeeze them, rub them down, front, back, side. They shouldn't be startled by your presence. You shouldn't be able to walk up behind a dog when he's not paying attention and he hears you and gets startled. He should know it's you. He should know he's used to all these noises. So he's going to acknowledge you, but he shouldn't jerk away scared. You haven't done your job if a dog is like that, especially one you raised, right? And I'm not saying you're real quiet, you sneak up on them and go boo. Of course they're going to get startled. But just to be startled because they weren't expecting you to walk up behind them or from the side, even though they hear you, and to be spooked when you walk up on them, that's what I'm talking about. That's not good. So handling them a lot throughout their life is important. And I saw one video of this gentleman, which is, we used to do this with all the animals. He did this with a horse. And he showed his horses weren't skittish. And he walked behind them and rubbed their tail and patted them on the front, chest, lift up their legs. He could walk underneath them. The horse wasn't startled, because a lot of times horses are skittish, and he didn't have a problem. So his horses, they're never going to kick him. They're never going to kick someone they're familiar with because they walk up behind them. You see a lot of horses do that. Person come up, touch them from behind like that, and they'll kick them. That horse hasn't been handled. They should be used to that. You can pull on a horse's tail. You can pull on a horse's mane. It's not going to hurt them. But if they don't like it or they're not used to it, yeah, they might kick you. They might step on you. They might stomp you. They might bite you. So you should be able to touch under their throat, under their jaw, their muzzle, their nose, pet their, the front of their head, their ears, all that stuff. And like this guy did, walk under them, walk behind them, go around. It's the same thing with dogs. They should be accustomed to all that petting and affection and rub downs and all that stuff. Every part of their body you should be able to rub them down, and I did, except their groin area, their belly, toes, tail, nose, ears, all that stuff, eyes, throat, teeth. Open their mouth. If you repeatedly open your dog's mouth to check his teeth and gums and tongues and all that, and he pulls away, you should have been doing that since he was little, so that when you do open his mouth, he's used to it. This is what you do with him all the time. And you check his gums and you rub inside on the bottom, their tongue and their teeth and all that. Open it up and they don't pull away. They just allow you to do it because they're used to it. So there's a lot to handling animals, and dogs in particular, because that's our animal, our favorite. So and a lot of that is part of the breeding. Having dogs that are stable and have great constitution and durability, all that stuff, mentally stable, good temperament, that's part of the breeding, which means you should only breed the individuals that exhibit those traits. Which means if you have timid dogs or you're breeding timid dogs, that's what you're going to get. Not all of them, not every one of them, but I was at least trying to eliminate that as much as possible. The only way I know how to do it is by not breeding the ones that are abundantly timid or extremely shy, and breeding the ones that were confident and not intimidated and were durable and could be handled and were good with people. And some of the things I see their behavior with dogs on YouTube and videos and all that stuff, it doesn't impress me. I don't like it. If you see them get in dog's face and they growl or bark and do stuff with them to get a reaction out of the dog, a lot of times that's not good. The dog's going to bite you. And you shouldn't have that, in my opinion, have that type of relationship with a dog where you're barking at the dog and he gives some kind of negative reaction to it. I don't see the point. It's funny and people laugh and ha ha. They go, oh, this and that, give their stupid opinions on what they think it means. But if you challenge an animal long enough, they're going to meet that challenge. The same way you see dogs tearing up stuff and chewing on your shoes and your socks and pulling on your pants, and people go, oh, look at that. Oh, that's dumb. How many pairs of pants can you afford? And if you say, oh, that's okay, they're old, I don't care, it's good for the dog. No. There's ways to get that reaction, to get that training out of them, that teaching, that influence, without having them being your own pair of pants or your own shoes. Especially if you're married. Wife's not going to like that. She don't want no dog jumping and tearing up her couch and all that stuff, knocking stuff off the counter. They shouldn't be on the counter. They shouldn't be chewing. But we never let the dogs nip at the kids. We never let them chase the kids and tackle them and knock them down or chew on their shoelaces or pull their dress or any of that stuff. They got a harsh treatment for that. And, that's okay. Again, that could be redirecting. That could be using that word no in a harsh way, not allowing them to do that. It's not cute. Because some people don't have the foresight to think, if you're letting them do that when they're tiny pups, what do you think they're going to do when they're adult, when they're 40 or 50 pounds? It's not so cute then. So why do it when you can get that same training, that same action, by not allowing them to do that? If you want to teach them tug of war, you want to teach them flirt pole, you want to teach them spring pole, do that. And they'll understand that whatever it is you have in your hand for that action, that's what it's for. If you use a rope or a pair of Levi's like I did, or a long piece of hide, or whatever it is to play tug of war, and you have the bait, whatever it is, for the spring pole, that's what it's for. The dog understands that's what we're going to do now. So it shouldn't be them just be able to grab anything, any piece of clothing, anything that flashes in front of their head, because they will do that. They're used to grabbing anything, including your kids' pants and your pants and a rag on the kitchen sink and a piece of couch is sticking out or something, the pillow or whatever, they're grabbing it. And anything you have in your hand or anything that passes in front of them, they're going to grab it because you taught them that. You allowed them to do that. So it should be specific, certain tools for certain actions that the dog knows that's what it's for. Believe me, you'll save yourself a lot of headache. And I had to learn all this stuff going along. I didn't make this stuff up or realize what the negatives were of it. So it's a learning process for everybody, myself included. The other thing I've mentioned before, I'll do it again, is in today's world you can't have as many dogs. So because of that, you have less selection. But because of that also, you have better selection, meaning whatever dogs you do have, they're going to be the best that there is, rather than having a bunch of them, and some of them are going to be good. Because if you have a bunch of them, you can't do what I'm talking about here. You can't put all that time and effort into every one of them if you got 50 dogs. You just can't. There's not enough time in the day. You can't get enough help to have that repeated, whatever it is you want them to do, because they're your dogs, rely on another person to do it the same way you would do it, and to do it all the time. Everybody got to work, everybody got family or not, but everybody does have responsibilities. So you have less dogs, but you can put more time into them, which means you'll have better dogs and better selection, meaning whatever dogs you have, they're going to be the very best. And for me, that was a good thing. It's a good thing nowadays because I didn't have a bunch of dogs in the past because of that reason. I couldn't put enough time into a bunch of them. I wanted to raise each one in a particular way, and that takes time. The more dogs you have, the more time you're cutting away from another dog. So throughout the week and months and all that, they could all get the same amount of time and care and attention and teaching and influencing as all the other dogs did. Each one got about the same amount of my personal time and my family's personal time in them. So I have notes here. And good breeding, what I was just talking about, that mental stability and all that stuff. That's what it does. It ensures that constitution, that toughness, which is generational, meaning if you have tough dogs, you keep that toughness, durability, whatever it is, mental stability in them, and you're only breeding the dogs that have it, then it's going to remain in your family of dogs for forever. So that's where the breeding part of all this behavior and tractability and teachability and learning and intelligence comes in. You're using those individuals that have those traits and are able to pass them on. Another thing I wanted to touch on is hunting instincts, finishing instincts, killer instinct, they're called prey drive, all that stuff, which is different from fighting ability, athleticism in that respect, style, and all that stuff. So an example I'll use, I saw this video, this is big old hairy dog. It was dark, I don't know what breed it was, well over 100 pounds. And they had it fight this, it looked like a pit bull or a staff or whatever. And they cut him loose. Pit bull went in there, staff, whatever it was, went in to do its thing. That big dog, all it did was grab it by the back of the neck and just held it. And then the pit bull got out of it, changed holes, whatever, and then the dog grabbed it by the throat and just held it there. Now, it wasn't trying to kill the pit bull, staff, whatever it was, but it could have. And it basically, with those two holds, the back of the neck and the throat, immobilized the pit bull, couldn't do nothing. And it went as long until the pit bull got wore out and tired, and he couldn't do anything. Then they broke it up. And I think their point was, this big old dog, he could beat a pit bull. The way I looked at it is that dog was using instincts for survival and, to some extent, hunting, killing instincts. He didn't look at it like a confrontation, like you do a fight. He looked at it like survival and killing, hunting. And that's where people make the mistake of thinking the two are the same. They're not. They're connected, but they're not the same. They're totally different instincts and different functions, right? You need one, in our cases back in the day, you need one along with the other. And but you understand that they're two different things. You need them in conjunction. That's what I meant to say. So, and I see that in certain situations with certain pit bulls. They don't have that killer instinct. I took care of a dog for a friend of mine, and mine never had a problem with that. Mine, I mentioned it before. They killed all kinds of stuff because of where we lived and the way they were influenced to what we taught them, what we exposed them to. So they would kill anything. Didn't matter if it was a coyote, didn't matter if it was a possum, a squirrel, a rabbit, a snake, a toad even, which toad ain't good, a chicken, cat, whatever came in their area, or if they're out running around digging for squirrels, they get them, kill them, and eat them. So I was taking care of this female, and we had gophers. And the old method, you put the whole hose in the ground and you turn it on and it fills up, and the gopher, instead of drowning, he comes out of the hole. So I just waited for the gopher to come out of the hole. It came out of the hole, this bitch went. She didn't kill it. She didn't kill it, didn't eat it. She played with it, threw it around. I've seen dogs in the box do that. They're not going in to finish their opponent. They're worrying them, which means they'll grab them and shake them, and they'll bite them here and there, drag them around, shake their ear, shake their body. They ain't trying to finish it. So this female didn't have a killer instinct. She didn't have that finishing instinct. I had to kill the gopher because she just played with it. It was one of my dogs. As soon as it came out of the ground, they saw it. It was snatched it, swallowed it whole. And I've had dogs do that. Bill would do that. If the animal was small enough, he didn't even chew it. He just grabbed it and swallowed it. That little dog I got from Boyle's, Ronnie, I had a mouse problem in my garage one time. They got into the dog food bag. There were 3 of them in there, and I'm scared of mice, so that wasn't a good situation. But I had Ronnie there, had my son hold him, and I just tipped the bag over, the dog food bag, and 3 mice came running out. My son let him go, and he grabbed each mice, grabbed it, swallowed it, grabbed it, swallowed it, grabbed it, 3 of them in a row. No shaking, no biting, no chewing, just ate them whole. That's a difference from the fighting instinct. The fighting is a confrontation. You're exchanging blows, they're throwing this or that, doing whatever is in the fighting aspect. The good ones, either in the beginning, will try to finish their opponent, or later on, when they have the advantage, they'll finish their opponent. Those are the kind of dogs I wanted. I didn't want just fighting dogs. I wanted finishers that had that real prey drive. People call prey drive when they see something, go after something, or they attack it, or they chase it, whatever it is. Oh, he's got good prey drive. Really? What prey has he killed? Because dogs will do that. They'll chase it, knock it down, worry it, shake it, and some will back off on it. Some will leave it alone. Some will kill it and they're done, rather than kill it and eat it. So these are some of the things you have to think about. For example, and that's why I say some of these traits are lost. A lot of these finishing hunting traits have been lost through the wrongful breeding practices by not understanding the differences from all these behaviors and trying to retain them within your dogs and using the ones that have them to pass it on. When you think about, let's say, a dog that hunts raccoons and a catch dog, right? And even catch dogs, I'll go into a little bit of that. Those two are not the same. You want the catch dog to catch the hog, hopefully in a position where he's not hurt, hopefully in a position where they're not trading blows, because they will do that. They'll actually, I've seen hogs do that, take shoulder holds, and they shake out, and the dog will shake out like that. That's not what you want in a catch dog, in my opinion. And the best ones I've seen, they don't even shake a lot, because that's just wasting energy. You want them to catch the hog and hold it until the hunters come and either dispatch the hog or knock it down, tie its legs up, do what they do with it. Take it, home or whatever, right? But a good catch dog, smart, they go and they get the muzzle or they get the ear and they hold on to it, and they use their weight when they can against the hog, which helps them hold the hog. And they have to maneuver around sometimes, and there's bucking back and forth, pushing and back and forth like that. But a catch dog that shakes a hog, that's just wasted energy, in my opinion. And that doesn't mean, though, because it's a good catch dog, that it would be a good hunting dog. Because you don't want a catch dog to kill the hog. That would take too long, if he could do it, just from the size difference. But again, that doesn't mean a good catch dog is a good hunting dog. You want a hunting dog that knows how to finish an animal. They're either going to go to the throat, break the neck, crush the head, depending on the size of the animal. If they go to the chest or legs like that, that means they're going to get bit. They could get hurt. If a hunting dog is fighting an animal, that's not good. If they're trying to dispatch the animal, that's good. And it could mean that they go into the brisket. But again, if you hit the chest and brisket, the prey can bite you back. That's why I like the dogs to go to the throat. Less damage. Takes a shorter amount of time. Or break their neck from behind. Can't get hurt. Dispatch the animal. Crush the head. Or even if they grab like a raccoon's muzzle or a coyote's muzzle and break it. But then they still would have to dispatch it. So those are two different actions. So being a good catch dog doesn't mean it's a good hunting dog. At the same time, being a good hunting dog doesn't mean it's going to make a good catch dog. Because again, it's going to take too long for that hunting dog to dispatch the pig. So, these are observations I've made, and I've had dogs for most of my life, ever since we were a kid, different breeds. And you see different things, and you notice different things. And part of their intelligence has to come into play once they become familiar with the type of prey. If it's a smaller type of prey, yeah, they have to dispatch it. Even a coyote. But if a pit bull, if you have it on coyotes and it's fighting the coyotes rather than trying to kill the coyotes, then your dog's going to suffer damage. And in hunting dogs, you want as little damage as possible because you want to take them out hunting repeatedly. So even with that, they have to be the right kind of dog. And in the legal sports, it's the same thing. A good weight pool dog may not be a good treadmill race dog, or a wall climb dog. You know, if you want to enter all three events, then you would have to have an all-around athlete type of dog, one that's strong, one that's fast, and one that can jump. So that's some of the things, and they're related because all these instincts are ancient instincts in canines, and however long dogs been around, and breeders bred them for particular functions. And I don't know how long catch dogs have been around, probably long before they became popular in modern day, but I'm sure some of them guys could tell which ones were the best ones by the way they committed the action. Like I said, you don't want them to waste energy. You want them to be able to use their weight against the hog. You want them to be able to hold on and maneuver if they have to. But you don't want a lot of shaking and trading blows and stuff like that. With other prey, you want them to dispatch it. So they have to have that finishing instinct. You don't want them fighting the prey. You want them to dispatch it. So in my case, in the past with the dogs, that's what the intent I wanted in my dogs. Yeah, they're going to fight, and they have certain styles and ways to go about it. But whether it was in the beginning of the show or towards the end of the show, whenever it was, I wanted to see that finishing instinct. Even if they didn't have the mouth to do it, that was their intent, meaning they went to certain spots to try and finish their opponent. So along with all this training stuff I've been talking about, it's important to observe your dogs and put them in situations and training and influences and exposure to see the quality of the animal, to see what it's capable of, to see what it's not capable of, what instincts it has, whether they're man-made instincts that have been put into the breed like the pit bull, or whether they're ancient instincts, primal instincts that dogs used in the wild, that have stuck with them. And like I said, a lot of those primal instincts, I don't see them in dogs anymore. They don't exhibit them. So it's just something to think about. It can be used in all aspects of whatever function you're using your pit bull for. And, take notes of your own dogs, everything about them. Then go over them and figure out which are the best ones, and those will be the ones to breed. So thanks again for watching. Thanks for your support. More on the way.